Yeah, peace, love, and coconut oil family. Back again for the second time, twice. Kind of be redundant, repetitive in language still. Running it again because our first presentation we had a loss of connection because as I pointed out to the family, the weather isn't really, what they would consider not too good. And as a result, it affects connectivity. So we're gonna run it again. Hopefully the family who was with us previously will eventually come back in straight. But I didn't even post the link on Tina. Give me just a second, fam. Give me just a second. Just a second. Just a second, okay. All right. So, feel a slight drizzle. Hopefully, it doesn't. The clouds are just gathering to give us the complete showers later tonight, so we can still go through family. Okay. So, again, we're gonna switch over to the presentation and get it going. This is for even the people who may be clicking on this presentation and not the first one. This presentation, family, is basically entitled, Did King Solomon Rape the Queen of Sheba? Now, as we mentioned in the very first video, we know these characters are mythical, okay? But for our people who want to be affixed to these stories and basically lay the whole faith and everything upon that, as we did at one point in time, we want to bring the complete understanding. You understand? So people can release themselves from mental incarceration because this is the awakening family worldwide. Africans, we have to come as one, destroy all kind of fake dogma and be based and come together as one on facts and evidence, family. You check it? That alone that can liberate us as a people and even liberate the motherland. You check it? So without any further ado, let me go through. Did King Solomon rape the Queen of Sheba? So as I said, these two characters don't exist. We know they don't exist. But we're going to go through the story and see if this accusation that we are presenting is correct, right? Hope the family hearing the birds in the background there sound beautiful. So for those who think that Simon is just chatting from his own mouth or whatever, I don't have good sources. I mean, because again, this is part 2 of the second video I have on my channel entitled The Truth About King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. So for this one, we're going to have some screenshots, we're going to have some sources, and we're just going to run it, family. So this is how far we got to in the first presentation. So we're just going to read it through again. King Solomon, background and sources. Nearly all evidence for Solomon's life and reign, his reign as king, comes from the Bible, especially the first 11 chapters of the first book of Kings and the first 9 chapters of the second book of Chronicles. So let's just stop right there for a second. That goes to show your family, apart from the Bible meaning secular information, okay, there is no evidence for these characters. It is all in the Bible. Now, according to those sources, his father was David, and David flourished around 1000 before the Christian era. The poet and king who, against all great odds, founded the Judean dynasty and united all the tribes of Israel under one monarch. Okay, Solomon's mother was Bathsheba, but I just cut that information. Next slide. Maternal evidence for Solomon's reign, as for that of his father, is scant. Meaning they don't really have that. You check it? Although some scholars claim to have discovered artifacts that corroborate the biblical account of his reign in the early 10th century BCE. Others claim that the archaeological record strongly suggests that the fortified cities and even the Temple of Jerusalem actually emerged more than a century later. So archaeology, family, is saying, they say that others claim, okay? Archaeology basically is saying that the temple that they're trying to attribute to Solomon emerged more than a whole 100 years later. And in the latter view, so all that basically is just different scholars and researchers and the conclusions that they have came up with. Okay, and it says in the latter view, the kingdom of Solomon was far from the vast empire that the biblical narrative describes. So there you have it. It's not me. I mean, I just bring a little source to you one time because there have some people in the comments under my first presentation just want to come and play with, like, you know what I mean? I know what I'm talking about. Okay, and for my Rastafari bedroom them too. It's, I mean, it's a pity all falling in that, you know. But then again, who else is the Most High God and King, the Almighty Emperor, the God Almighty, actually got his divinity according to you all from that lineage. So we're showing you that these characters are really mythical, and you do not need, okay, a Judeo-Christian narrative to pronounce your divinity. You see, because there are holes in this thing, family, and this is what we're coming to show you. Hopefully, we don't lose connection again. Hopefully, you know, the showers hold back themselves, but we still go inside, if anything. So King Solomon, we basically give the rundown, right? That is one character, because remember, the video is about King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba and an accusation. So we're describing the characters first, then we're going to define the accusation, and then we're going to go in, okay? Queen Solomon, same source. Queen of Sheba, Arabic, Bilqis, okay? Ethiopian, Makeda. So in Arabic, she is referred to as Bilqis. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And in Ethiopian, she's referred to as Makeda. Now, according to Jewish and Islamic traditions, now by that sentence there alone, family, you will know that that story, or you should know rather, that particular story is not only in the Jewish context, it's also in Islamic family, also in, you know what I mean? So you'll find it in the Quran. But then you will not find her as Queen of Sheba. You will find her as Bilqis, but it's the very same individual. Okay. Now, according to Jewish and Islamic traditions, ruler of the kingdom of Saba or Sheba in southwestern Arabia. This is very important. You see what I'm saying? So why is it the Britannica source and the Arabian source will say that she lived in southwestern Arabia? But then we as black people wanting to make everything black, really, we want to place her in Ethiopia and say that she's the queen of Ethiopia. You see what I'm saying? Someone has it incorrect. You check, family? Someone has it incorrect, straight up. Hopefully that's still going through. Everything nice? Yes. Where were we? In the biblical account of the reign of King Solomon, she visited his court at the head of a camel caravan bearing gold, jewels, and spices. The story provides evidence for the existence of important commercial relations between ancient Israel and southern Arabia. According to the Bible, the purpose of her visit was to test Solomon's wisdom by asking him to solve a number of riddles. Now, this is the Britannica's source for the Queen of Sheba and her existence. This source to the right is from what they refer to as, it is a book part of the Ethiopian clergy called the Kebra Negast. And the latter part of our presentation is from that book. That is a very important book to the Ethiopian Christian church family. Okay? It is part of their belief system. But again, we want to hang on to it like it is actual historical fact when that is not the case. So according to the Kebra Negast, it says, among the masters or leaders of these caravans was one Tamrin. Tamrin, who managed the business and affairs of a queen of the south, whom Arab writers call Balqis. See, instead of the Q, we actually have the K. And Ethiopian writers, Makeda. We just read that from Britannica, so we know, right? But neither of these names is ancient. It is very doubtful if either represents in any way the true name of the southern queen. You see? So Balqis, Makeda, these aren't even, they say they're very doubtful that it represents the true name of the queen. It is also doubtful that she was an Ethiopian. And it is far more probable that her home was Sheba or Saba or Sheba in southwest of Arabia. As she was a worshipper of the sun, she was probably a princess among the Sabians. On the other hand, her ancestors may have been merely settlers in Arabia. Okay, so we have both sources, family, claiming that where Queen of Sheba resided was actually in southwestern Arabia. Okay, straight up definition of the accusation, because since we say in did King Solomon rape the Queen of Sheba, I know many of our people know the story, and they're like, oh, King Solomon is the wisest king, and the man, uses heights on the queen. You check it, and he basically just work his magic. You understand? But really and truly, family, it is rape. You might find it like a harsh thing to say, but it's the reality. Now we already showed how these two characters, okay, one is mythical, one actually didn't even reside where we think she resides, and now the accusation. Definition: rape. It's a noun. Unlawful sexual activity, and usually sexual intercourse carried out forcibly or under threat of injury against a person's will, or with a person who is beneath a certain age or incapable of valid consent because of mental illness, mental deficiency, intoxication, unconsciousness, or deception. So it's basically a person being unable, right, incapable of a valid consent because of being deceived. We go on the very last definition: deception. Because obviously, if a man is trying to rape a woman, all of us know the understanding of rape, you know, taking sex from a woman when she doesn't actually subscribe to it. Okay, when she doesn't give the okay, right? But there is also rape to a level where, okay, let's take for example, there was something back in the day. I don't know if the family familiar with it. They was referring to as Spanish fly. When you put that in a girl drink and the girl woozy whole night, you can basically like if you were drugging her. Okay, so if you drug a woman and you take sex from her, you mean to tell me die rape? But look, it's defined right there because of mental deficiency, intoxication, and consciousness. And all these things are a result because of something someone did to affect the decision. And this is what we're going to get into, family. Okay? Sources on Solomon and Sheba. For those people again who say Simon is just making up his own opinion, you know how we do on Melington Empire, bringing that fire still, family. As I said again, I had some help with the presentation. Shout out to two bedrooms, Akru Chromati, and even Malik Camera still. And even through reasoning, if even, bedroom like Wesu Hiruma at still bringing a deeper understanding, and gathering all of this together, even within my own research and presenting this to your family. So sources on Solomon and Sheba. For those who say Simon probably is just chatting out of his own mouth and they don't have no sources, we have first here from the book Gnosis by Gardiner Philip, page 233. The legendary Queen of Sheba has spawned hundreds of films and thousands of books. She is the equal only of the great Egyptian queen Cleopatra, who died with the aid of a serpent. Okay, I don't know if the family knows the story. There are a few females in history who have captured mankind's imagination in such a way. And yet, just like King Solomon, Sheba never existed. Her story has been repeated many times and in many contexts, but there isn't a scrap of evidence for her existence apart from the religious writings of the Bible, Quran, the Kebra Negast, and a few others. Like Solomon, Sheba's real name is Enigma. See the source right there, family? Going on from New Discoveries in Africa by Professor Peter Ridgway Smith. In the 13th century, the Christian Highlanders even borrowed from Arabia. You see it? We just showed you, according to the sources in the previous slides, that the story where Sheba resided is in Arabia. And look, we're getting it from a source right here. In the 13th century, the Christian Highlanders even borrowed from Arabia and adapted the fable of the Queen of Sheba with which to further their own conquest and political tale. They developed what was to become known as the Solomonic myth. And we have two sections here from A History of Ethiopia by Harold G. Marcus. As a usurper, the new monarch encountered considerable resistance, and in order to over Tigray with its many Aksumite traditions, he and his supporters began to circulate a fable about his descent from King Solomon and MAKEDA, Queen of Sheba, and their son Emperor Menelik. This is an individual called Yakunu Amlak. Hopefully we'll get onto him later in the presentation. A genealogy that, of course, gave him traditional legitimacy and provided him the continuity so honored in Ethiopia's subsequent national history. So basically, if there is another set of people ruling and you just come out of nowhere and say, but oh, I from this and that lineage and from that lineage, because the people actually believe um, the predecessors and those ancestors of that story, it like you will automatically be honored, okay, and you will be bestowed with all the rights. So that is what Amlak actually did. He made up a story because the people are actually familiar with that story. Remember, we have both Christian and Islam in Ethiopia, so the people were familiar with that story because it's in both books. It's in the Quran and the Bible. So if you come and you say, oh, you're from this and that lineage, I mean, the people don't have no choice but just to humble and you know what I mean. And later on in the book, he actually says, Kebra Negast, Glory of Kings, it is a pistache of legends conflated early in the 14th century by 6 Tigrarian tribes. Yishak, the chief compiler, claimed that he and his colleagues were merely were merely translating an Arabic version of a Coptic work into Ge'ez. In fact, his team blended local and regional oral traditions and style and substance derived from the Old and New Testament, various apocryphal writings, Jews and Islamic commentaries, and patristic writings. So, family, I don't know what more proof you need to show that these individuals never existed. Okay? But again, for the brothers and sisters who dip into the story, you check what I'm saying? Let me just I hope my what you call it? Bear with me just a second, fam. I'm just hoping my audio is on. Yeah. All right, beautiful. Beautiful. We're still gonna run it, even though no one is going. Another video for the channel. Big up to the individual that just come in. See, I just say we still go run it despite no one in the houses yet. So we just completed a few sources, about 3 sources, family, that these characters never existed and neither did the event. But for our family who really want to subscribe to these things, there are holes actually even in the story, and this is what we're going to get into. So we went to the definition of the 2 characters, we defined the accusation, and we just went on the sources of the characters showing that it didn't exist. Now these are artistic depictions of the 2 characters. So we have Solomon on the picture on the left, we have Solomon here, King Solomon, and this is meant to be the Queen of Sheba. Notice she is not black, she looks Arabian, family. And we discerned even from basic sources that she was from Southern Arabia and she looks Arabian right here. Okay, but this other picture, I mean, will be the picture that most black people probably like to see. You know, she looks black, but obviously the King Solomon, which many trying to say, oh, we're Israelites and King Solomon still in the lineage or whatever, and you know, from King Solomon, Queen Sheba. Solomon not even black, yo. You check what I'm saying? So which picture do you want to subscribe to? Notice the picture on the left, the greeting that Sheba gives, right? Doesn't this look very familiar, family? Showing the influence of whatever culture that I'm mentioning, that I'm trying to specify right here, okay? It was actually even Saudi Arabia was actually influenced by it as well. That greeting here is called the Tem or the Tum. You will see Osiris when he's holding the crook and the frail, family. What are you talking about? Okay, so Solomon and Balqis. These are another 2 depictions over. Again, most of us will like to see the picture on the left. You don't know why too? Because what she's holding in her hand, right? This circle thing, which is supposed to signify the globe or earth, and the cross on top of it, showing that the dominion of Christianity over the world. Now, many of us will subscribe to this because, again, the scepter and the orb, it's called, which she's holding, we saw Emperor Haile Selassie holding these very same items. So we'll be like, yeah, that is the one, and she black for true, and you know what I mean. Yo, I mean, okay, the thing about info is, right, when you get the information, family, you have to be humble about it, right? You have to be real humble about it and bring the information about, in a nice way for the people to really get the full understanding. But when you meet some idiots that trying to disrespect you and show you like you ain't know what you're talking about without bringing sources apart from the Bible and them with it, sometimes you have to come on another level, guys. You have to come on another level. You check what I'm saying? Now the one to the right is Sheba as well. You see, so it's which one you're dealing with. Now some people will say, but that's on National Geographic. There was actually a an article. Okay, I even think it was a documentary about the search for the Queen of Sheba and her mines. Okay, since they say basically she was wealthy, right? And people say, well, if she wasn't real, they wouldn't have actually gone and done National Geographic specifically wouldn't have actually gone and done this whole documentary. Okay, but as we read in one of the sources, this story has spawned thousands of films, family, and narratives. You understand? So why wouldn't they actually take interest and even, I mean, if nothing is going on for them, even go on because there's a documentary about that. But we cut a specific part of the article. Okay, and this is what it says: Twilight is gathering, and I have yet to see the Queen of Sheba's palace. This is the researcher, the interviewer, who is talking about him basically, whether it is in Ethiopia or in Arabia, looking for this Queen of Sheba palace. Okay, he goes on to say, I hurry to the site west of town and find myself clambering over the back wall to wander alone through the haunted ruins. But haunted by what? Archaeologists date the palace tentatively to the 6th century BCE, okay? When the Queen of Sheba would have been dead for several centuries. Are you hearing this, family? Archaeologists are dating the place they're trying to say that the Queen of Sheba's palace is, okay, dating the ruins of that place back to 6th century BC, when the Queen of Sheba would have been dead for several centuries. So both the places they are trying to attribute to these characters in an attempt to give them life, historical relevance. The place for King Solomon was created over a century later, maybe between from 100 to 200 years. And the place they're trying to attribute to the Queen of Sheba, was built when Sheba herself would have been dead for several centuries. You see how we just bringing it out, family? You see it? So let's go on to reading. They're not even sure that Sabia or Sabia, the historical name for the land of Sheba, was in Ethiopia. Yemen seems to have an equally persuasive claim. I hope the family is with me. Yemen in South Arabia. I hope the family is with me. You check it, and I hope I am boring you too. Now, according to ancient maps, family, this is the Queen of Sheba's abode. We see we have Ham here, where it's a Kush, Seba, Egypt, Shem, Jukim. Watch here. What Sheba here in Arabia? This is Arabia. This is Africa, family. Okay. Dr. John Henry Clark have often said there was even a bridge at one point in time. Now, Sheba here is in South Arabia. This is the Queen of Sheba's abode, family. Here is another map. We see the same thing. Sheba here. You see? In Arabia, family. So if Sheba is in Arabia, and we find two sources saying that Yemen or Southern Arabia seems to be where she resided, doesn't that kind of make the thing an Arabic story? As we can see from one of the sources, the Tigrarian scribes actually said it was an Arabian work he and his bedrooms were basically translating. So the story is an Arabian story, family. Arabian Nights. Let's go on to read about the Solomonic dynasty, if you're already satisfied. Worldhistory.org. The Solomonic dynasty. The medieval kingdom of Abyssinia was founded by the Solomonic dynasty. Okay? Their first ruler being Yakuno Amlak, which is the very same individual I told you, or we read from a previous source, that actually made up the story or the tale about him being descended from the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon and their son Menelik. Okay, so he became their first ruler. a local leader at Amara. It is likely that the Solomonids saw the kings of Zagwe as usurpers, okay, an interruption to the dynasty that had ruled Aksum, and they gathered the support of anti-Zagwe factions, which had presented a continuous opposition throughout the 12th and 13th century CE. The Zagwe dynasty contributed to its own downfall by always having disputes over who had the right of succession. Even the great Lalibela had been briefly disposed of by his own nephew. Lalibela, Simon, they said, responsible for building those rock-hewn churches. So we can see here the dynasty started by one Yakuno Amlak. Okay, and we have 1285 CE. 1285 CE. Because remember now, Aksum was converted, or most of Ethiopia was converted during the reign of King Izana, which is in 330 or 333 CE family, after ACE or CE, however you want to say it. Now, in Wikipedia, it goes on to say the Solomonic dynasty, also known as the House of Solomon, was a dynasty of the Ethiopian Empire formed in the 13th century. That's just yesterday, family, 13th century. Its members claim lineage descent from the biblical King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Tradition asserts that the queen gave birth to Menelik I after her biblically described visit to Solomon in Jerusalem. Now the thing is, family, if the people want to believe the thing, that is fine. That is fine. Anything you about your faith is that you want to believe, you want to believe. But we're basically showing when you were a child, you did childish things and things as a child. But when you became a man, you have to put away childish things, family. You see what I'm saying? You have to put away certain real belief system especially when you're seeing that you're bringing no progress to your life, really. Let's just be real, that's everybody's sleeping and everybody's sleeping. You check it. So we have explained again these characters. We have shown the sources, explained the Solomonic dynasty. We also showed Queen Solomon's Queen of Sheba or Balqis, her abode and where she resides in Arabia, in southwestern Arabia. Kingdom of Israel, Solomon's empire, according to what they say, because we know this man never existed. And they'll try and say, oh, but the Tel Dan still they actually spoke about King David. Now I forgot to put that picture in the presentation sent from my bedroom Malik camera, showing that the individually trying to say that the Tel Dan Steely is trying to speak about being David, House of David. That's even incorrect. Contemporary scholars even threw that thought out the window, family. You can even go and do that piece of research. I just forgot to put the picture in there. But these characters, we are seeing first. I even have to go over that. If you still believe these characters existed, it's up to you. But we'll show you in the story how he even actually raped her. So if you rape a woman, how you expect that lineage to be divine? And if these characters never existed, what is the divinity you all are speaking about? If that is what you all want to base it upon. You check. Now, according to this picture, family, the Solomonic dynasty. In red, we have the territory of Israel before David became king. In orange, we have area conquered by David and inherited by Solomon. And in sort of yellow, we have area under strong economic influence of Solomon. So this whole place here is the Solomonic Empire. So what do we learn from this, family? That the Solomonic Empire is to the north, northwest, okay, of Queen of Sheba's abode. This thing didn't take place in Africa. So don't come and tell me King Solomon, because he's thrown in Ethiopia and Africa, well, it's Ethiopia too. And then the woman now is Queen of Ethiopia. So what? Was it a tradition from Ethiopia to Ethiopia or Ethiopia inside of Ethiopia? No, it's an Arabic story, family. Because the place where these characters resided is in Arabia. You understand? So ultimately, this is not our story. Okay? Not our story. Now, according to the Bible, the only mention we have of the visit of Queen of Sheba, 2 Chronicles chapter 9 verse 1. And when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to prove Solomon with hard questions at Jerusalem with a very great company, and camels that bear spices, and gold in abundance, and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And then the same chapter, I think it closes on the 12th verse. It says, "And King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all her desire, whatever she asked, besides that which she had brought unto the king. So she turned and went to her own land, she and her servants." Now, this is all the Bible mentions about King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. That's why, if you want to go in depth into the story, you're going to have to go in other books, namely the Kebra Negast, which is why we say again, the latter part of this presentation is about the book. This is one of the covers of the book, The Queen of Sheba and her only son Menelik, also known as the Kebra Negast, the Glory of Kings. Within the book, in the introduction, it actually says, as we screenshot there, the Kebra Negast is a great storehouse of what? Not facts and information. Storehouse of legends and traditions. Okay? Some historical and some of a purely folklore character, derived from the Old Testament and the later rabbinic writings, and from Egyptian, both pagan and Christian, Arabian and Ethiopian sources. Of the early history of the compilation and its maker, and of its subsequent editors, we know nothing. But the principal groundwork of its earliest forms was the traditions that were current in where? Syria, Palestine, Arabia, and Egypt during the first 4 centuries of the Christian era. Weighing carefully all that has been written by Dillman, Trupp, Zotenberg, Wright, and Bizold, and taking into account the probabilities of the matter, these are actually primary sources, it seems to me that we shall not be far long if we assign the composition of the earliest form of the Kebra Negast to the 6th century AD. You see what I'm saying, family? So inside the book, it's telling you it's a storehouse. The book itself is basically of legends, traditions, some historical, and some purely folklore characters. So we have 3 things that are mythical and some historical. Sounds like a book I know. You check it? Sounds like a book I know, family. Now, many people who hear about the story will only say, yeah, King Solomon, Queen Sheba, go and visit Solomon, wisest man, and he lay with her and what have you. But the thing is, there are um, two parts to the story. As I said, there is an Arabic version and there is the Ethiopian version. In the Arabic version, it actually says that Solomon himself was flying on his magic carpet. Yes, yes, Solomon was flying on his magic carpet like Aladdin, flying on his magic carpet. He had soldiers to his right and evil spirits to his left. That carpet was really big to have all that space there. That's number one. And a set of birds, a flock of birds, actually flew over them while he flying on the carpet going through to protect them from the sunlight. To protect you from the sunlight? What happened? You afraid of the sun, Solomon? To protect them from the sunlight. And it was like the birds kind of had a formation apparently, and one bird was missing. So I guess a beam of light was coming down on Solomon. Now they said it could have he could have speak to birds, just as they say of the emperor. And he asked the birds where, let's just say for lack of a better term, Suzette, where Suzette that supposed to be blocking that hole there. And the other birds said him, well, Suzette had a fight to go and do and thing. So one time the man done getting screwed on Suzette already. So same time he getting screwed, Suzette pull up. And Suzette tell him, boy, they have a queen over so, and she's rich, and her kingdom has how many things, and her feet, but just her feet are hairy, but she's very beautiful and all kind of thing. So the man now that making up in his mind, okay, he will have to send a meeting to meet that woman and them kind of way there. So obviously she approved, and when she came to meet him in the courtyard, he actually laid glass on the floor, family, of the courtyard. So when he lay glass on the floor, he can see what is below her skirt. You see what I'm saying? That is how now someone will say, Gasa, his heights the man have. That's why the man do that. To me, that's deceiving, Gasa. Because the girl never ask you to go and look there. Straight. So you then start honor. Now it's true they said he was a lover of women, but to be the wisest man, you know what I mean? And for that to be divine, no. But again, the Arabic story says he lay a floor with complete glass. So when the queen now pull up on the glass, she thought was water. So she had to pull up her skirt a little bit. You check it? And one time he saw the goat foot, you know? Yeah, saw the goat foot and them kind of way there. But then the Ethiopian story, which is what I'm sure many of us are familiar with, since we like to talk about the queen and them way there, do you know in the Ethiopian story, one of Makeda's foot was actually a goat foot? Hmm? And as my goddess made me tell me the day before yesterday when I completed the presentation, thing that have good food is larger bless. I don't probably know what larger bless is still. They will call it the jinn or the jinne, right? Larger bless guys said that having one good food or two good food on the body of a human. You check it? Yeah. Now again, that concept was probably stolen by the Greeks, and then they have the centaur, which is the half man and half horse mentality. You check it? But in the Ethiopian tradition and in the Ethiopian story, Makeda had a goat foot. So let us see right here. And when now all this, I'm actually taking this pieces of the story from the Kebra Negast, the PDF. I actually had the book, you know, when I was in England doing my studies, like slightly more than a decade ago for me. So I've come across that story. I've actually attempted to take parts of the book and even write, an article about it. For example, the special wood that we are going to come across in this little part right here. So it goes on to say, and when the aforementioned queen arrived in Jerusalem, they're talking about Queen Makeda, and Solomon the king had heard of it and was quite certain from the information which he had received from his spies that one of her foot was the foot of a goat. He planned a cunning plan in his wisdom whereby he might be able to see her foot without asking. So you see the levels, family? You check it, I'm gonna say yes, guys, he's wise and you have to work the fight for you to get the thing from the woman. I said, they have anything nicer when you ask a woman straight and the woman just give you full permission? Hmm? Have anything that nicer instead of being. I mean, yeah, when you're just meeting a woman, you have to try and wiggle your way through and all kind of thing there. But all that, as big man, I seen all that. Yeah. Goes on to say, he placed his throne by the side of the courtyard of the temple, and he ordered his servants to open the sluices so that the courtyard of the temple might be filled with water. This was done, and the aforementioned piece of wood, which is what I said I would the article about, and hopefully we'll do a video later on for the channel in regards to that piece of wood, because that piece of wood very important, probably. This was done, and the aforementioned piece of wood that was in the courtyard, having been brought there by the eagle from below paradise, we'll get into that next video, don't worry, was submerged by the water. Now, I never know no piece of wood that's staying underwater. So probably they put something to hold the wood. But no one noticed this thing which had been decreed aforetime by the wisdom of God. So one time it's Solomon, one time it's God. So basically, they fill the courtyard with water, right? And then he submerged the piece of wood below the water. Now that piece of wood have powers, family. You check. Now again, all this again is mythology. But I mean, we're enjoying the story, but we're showing the holes in the story again. We have already shown that this story is not African in nature. Now, all this was decreed afore by the wisdom of God. And behold, when the queen arrived at the gate of the temple, now she was riding, she found the water there, and she determined to ride into the presence of King Solomon on her beast. But they made her to know that this was the door of the house of God, and that no one whatsoever might enter it riding on a beast. And they caused her to dismount from her beast, and her servants who were in attendance upon her supported her. And she stretched out her hand and drew up the lower parts of her cloak and her garments beneath it so that she might step into the water. Thus Solomon saw her feet without asking her. And behold, she stepped into the water in the courtyard, and her foot touched that aforementioned piece of wood. And as the foot that was fashioned like the foot of a goat touched the wood, The might of God made itself manifest, and the goat's foot became exactly like the fellow foot. Hmm? So we can see, family, from even this rendition, from the book itself, Makeda had a goat foot. And that special piece of wood that she stepped on made both her foot normal. You check it? Now the thing is, she went and behold the wisdom, she went and see the man and reason with him. And she stayed there a few days. Now the time actually came for her to move. Okay. So she went and said, well, she sent a message to Solomon saying that she will move. I didn't want to paste all of it because they really elaborate and go into a long thing about the story, family. So I just had to cut the pieces for you that are very fundamental. The Last Supper. I named that one the Last Supper because that's the Last Supper she had as a virgin. And it sounds like the Last Supper of Jesus Christ, really. Anyway, and King Solomon sent a message unto the queen saying, now that thou hast come here, why wilt thou go away without seeing the administration of the kingdom, and how the meals for the chosen ones of the kingdom are eaten after the manner of righteous, and how the people are driven away from the manner of sinners? From it thou wouldest acquire wisdom. Follow me now and sit thyself in my splendor in the tent, and I will complete thy instruction, and thou shalt learn the administration of my kingdom. For thou lovest wisdom, and she shall dwell with thee unto thine end forever. Now, we can see here, family, he already knew the woman was moving. You check it? But just like back in the day where you would put some kind of drug in a drink for a girl or something, or you're gonna look to put something in the food. Because how is it meals you mentioning? You check what I'm telling you. You ain't never tell her to just, let me just chill, and you done know it's in the meal, you go put the thing already. Now the bottom part I have this actually talking about when because remember he asked her to stay and have a meal before she leaves, but she would not. Now he was greatly entreated, and bear with me a second, family, and entreated her to yield herself to him, right? Like, so he was always trying something, but she would not surrender herself to him. And she said unto him, I came to thee a maiden, a virgin. Shall I go back despoiled of my virginity and suffer disgrace in my kingdom? So this is where we're saying she didn't really give the consent, because from the get-go, family, she didn't want to sleep with Solomon. Because she tell him, I came to thee a virgin, a maiden, a virgin. Shall I go back despoiled of my virginity and suffer disgrace in my kingdom? And Solomon said unto her, I will only take thee to myself in lawful marriage. I am the king, and thou shalt be my queen. And she answered him never a word. She didn't answer him anything. She didn't say okay or it's okay. She didn't say nothing. You check it? Now, in anticipation for her to stay, to make sure she stayed, to make sure that she eat the food for him to roll, they had to exchange some oaths. And Solomon answered and said unto her, remember, mythical characters, we're just dealing with the story. And Solomon answered and said unto her, I swear unto thee that I will not take thee by force, but thou must swear unto me that thou wilt not take by force anything that is in my house. And the queen laughed unto him and said, being a wise man, why dost thou speak as a fool? Shall I steal anything, or shall I carry out of the house of the king that which the king hath not given me? Do not imagine that I have come hither through love of riches. Now hear this. Look the shot right there. Moreover, my own kingdom is as wealthy as thine, and there is nothing which I wish for that I lack. You check what I'm telling you? And he said unto her, if thou wouldest make me swear, swear thou unto me, for a swearing is meet for both of us, so that neither of us may be unjustly treated. If thou wilt not make me swear, I will not make thee swear. And she said unto him, swear to me then that thou wilt not take me by force, and I on my part will swear to not take by force thy possessions. And he swore to her, and she made her swear. So the queen then telling you already, guys, what can I possibly take in your kingdom? My kingdom is as wealthy as yours. Now notice, family, it is said, we read earlier that her people actually worship the sun. So you see people kingdom who worship in nature is as wealthy as even the people allegedly that worship in that Israelite God family. All this is little because these stories are not to really be taken literally. There's a deeper understanding in the story. My conclusion, this story is actually showing, it is demonizing an indigenous culture and showing that the Christian culture or the belief in this Yahweh, this God of Abraham, is actually better than the nature gods that ancient and indigenous people were worshipping. And that is not the case. Because if that was the case, most of these people would have been in separation. And the woman said, okay, my own kingdom is as wealthy as thine. I hope the family heard me. I think you heard me, Asma. Everything bless. I think you heard me. Now, they basically swore. So, you swear not to rape me, not to take me by force, and I swear not to take anything from your house. I'm just going to have a meal with you, sleep the night, and tomorrow I'm going to go at my home. This is what the queen thought in her head. Okay? And after these things, Solomon summoned the cooks and commanded them to prepare and cook food for all who were in the palace, for himself and for the queen, dainty and highly seasoned dishes, and he gave them pungent and aromatic and strong smelling herbs and spices for this purpose. I mean, the cooks are cooks, they're supposed to know what herbs and spices to put in their food, but he gave them to the cook's family. Very important. Now, when the queen had eaten of these meats that were filled with spice and pepper and pungent herbs, she craved for cold water, which she drank in large quantities by day and by night. But this did not help her to quench her thirst, obviously. And when the third night had come, Solomon secretly gave the order to all those who were about the palace, both those who were inside it and those who were outside it, that none of them was to live with the aforementioned queen the smallest quantity of water to drink. And he swore that any of them who showed her where the water was or gave her water, which was his own, should be put to death forthwith and without trial. So you see the vibe, family. He asked her to stay for the night. He made her swear not to take anything from his house because he already knew the ingredients he's going to put in the food is going to make her very thirsty. And eventually she will want water. But he's asking everybody not to give the queen water, not to show her where the water is. If you show her where the water is, I will kill you. That's basically what it is, family. So the man know his movement. So you're being very deceitful there right now. Okay? And it goes on to say, and he commanded that if any of them were to be asked for water by her during the night, they were to say unto her, thou wilt find no water except by the couch of the king. You see that one too. You see that one too dread, Gaza. You're supposed to be wise. You're supposed to know what to even tell the queen, or you're supposed to be the wisest king. You're supposed to be full of chats, full of lyrics. You check it, you're supposed to just you never see Fifth Element when Chris Tucker, I forgot his name in the movie. When I was speaking to the woman and just see the woman just melting, you the wisest king, so you're supposed to be, you're not supposed to be being deceivious that way. I mean, the queen had wisdom herself. You check it, and she knew when you're trying something, which is why she made you make the oath not to take her by force. But you had your other way of doing your thing. So to me, family, they're not spelling divine. They're not spelling divinity. We know the character's fake, but they're not spelling divinity. You check it, and then you're telling anybody that give the queen water, dead. And if she come and ask you where the water is, tell her she will get no water, but by the couch of the king. You check it? And it came to pass that when the night had come, a great and fiery heat rose up in the heart of the queen because of the highly spiced food. And she sought for water to drink, but found none, and she was sorely agitated and was smitten with death. Then she cried out with a loud voice to her servants, but they were unable to find any water to give her to drink. Then, by reason of the consuming thirst that had seized upon her, she wandered into the palace and went round about to everyone who had water therein to find some water to drink. And every person whom she asked said unto her, verily, by thy kingdom thou wilt only find water to quench the flame of thy thirst by the bedside of the king. So first it was by the couch of the king, now we turn to the bedside. You check what I'm telling your family? And then the queen went back to her couch and she could not control herself, and she felt like her body, her spirit was leaving her, and then she had no choice but to go where Solomon was. Okay, and now she determined to drink the water which she had seen, because obviously he put the water there for her. And she looked at King Solomon and watched him carefully, and she thought that he was sleeping a sound sleep, but he was not asleep. VCS, VC, you check it, and he was waiting until she rise up to steal the water, to take the water to drink it, not no steal water. And she rose up, and making no sound with her feet, she went to the water in the bowl and lifted up the jar to drink the water. And Solomon seized her hand before she could drink the water, and said unto her, Why hast thou broken the oath that thou hast sworn that thou wouldest not take force anything that is in my house? And she answered and said unto him in fear, Is the oath broken by me drinking water? I thought you was talking about me stealing a kind of jewelry or stealing some kind of thing from your kingdom. That's why I told you my kingdom is as wealthy as yours. You cannot come and tell somebody, oh, they broke oath for stealing water, right? And the king said unto her, Is there anything that thou hast seen under the heavens that is better than water? Which is true to a level, it's better than water. But you made everybody hide water. You told anybody if they give me water, they're going to die. And you told the people that if she come and look for water, tell her the water is by your bed. So you're wrong, Gasa. You're wrong. Although you a myth, you're fucking wrong, bro. You check it? So they're making the woman feel guilty. And then the queen said, I have sinned against myself, and thou art free from thy oath, but let me drink water for my thirst. So all the woman just care about is like just drinking water. That sounded like the story of the bedroom that sell his birthright for porridge or something. So okay. Then Solomon said unto her, Am I perchance free from the oath which thou hast made me swear? And the queen said, Be free from thy oath, only let me drink my water. Because the woman they dying of first, Gasa. You check it? And he permitted her to drink water. And after she had drunk the water, he worked his will with her and they slept together. So the man used that. Because remember, first of all, the first saying was, the only water you will get is by the couch of the king, is by the couch of the king. And then it turned to by the bedside of the king. So the man had know his whole plan already, family. That's why I tell you, he's a rape vibe. Did Solomon rape the Queen of Sheba? You just saw the factual evidence. Well, we don't want to call it fact, but according to the story, the Arabian or the Ethiopian story, that is what it is. Okay? Now, as I said, the deity of SABA, according to the Kebra Negast, right? The queen was actually saying to Solomon in one part, and we worship the sun. Hmm? For he cooketh our food, and moreover, he illumineth the darkness and removeth fear. We call him our king. So the king or the king understanding family doesn't necessarily always have to be a man and a man king, because that king self will just up and I mean dead after a while and just transition. You understand? Although we know in reality nothing dies and energy can be destroyed, food law of thermodynamics. We know all of this. But we're basically saying if you're looking for an everlasting one like that, because remember, all the kings of ancient times, prehistory and historical, pre-dynastic, dynastic, whatever have you, we call the Sarah the son of God or the son of the sun. It's all about the Aten, the Atumra family. Because with that is the life giver and the keeper of life, whether it is directly or indirectly. Those are things we have touched upon. Give thanks we had the correct placement away in terms of planetary alignment from the sun. Give thanks was, I mean, dua even to the tilt of the Earth at 23.5 degrees, family. Okay? So she's saying we worship the sun and we call him our king and we call him our creator and we worship him as our God. For no man have told us that besides him there is another God. And that God had the kingdom as wealthy as so-called Israelites' kingdom. You check the vibe. So that story, they like to demonize indigenous culture, family. Okay, and put on a pedestal the Judeo-Christian Arabic religion, which again is not indigenous to Africa, straight up. So, my Christopher brethren, if it's that story you're looking for, the divinity, I mean, it's all a story. I mean, an Ethiopian story. You know, it's an Arabic story that some writers translated to gears, and the people take it onto themselves. Yukono Amlak to try and get the Zagwe dynasty off of the throne. So ultimately, if the people want to create their story and believe the thing, and even the king come in and talk, because the king is a Christian king, you know. You never see a picture of the king where and he have the white Jesus by him. The king, I mean, if we trying to say we're like, okay, we're not on Christianity heights and the white Jesus and fireball Christianity and the Bible and you know, but then you still, oh yeah, he's the king and the king alone and the king is creator and God and then the king is still a Christian king. I mean, that's a cognitive dissonance right there. The king is supposed to be seen and even venerated as another ancestor along the long line of righteous ancestors, if you want to put him in that category, that we've had, family. You check it, but don't come and have it where like, oh, is King Solomon, Queen of Sheba, that have him divine is a divine freedom. But look, we're just showing you right there. All of that is just make belief. You check it, and again, the influence of the Nile Valley culture into the kingdom of Saba or Sheba, we can see that they were even worshiping the sun as well. You know, I mean, I am no my brethren in Congo, Israel go like that part where it said, and the sun cook up their food. Someone might be saying, how can the sun cook your food? But that's another thing altogether. Okay. And they call him our king and our creator. But we have heard that there is with you, Israel, another God whom we do not know. And men have told us that he hath sent down to you from heaven a tabernacle and have given unto you a tablet of the ordering of angels by the hand of Moses the prophet. This also we have heard that he himself cometh down to you and talketh to you and informeth you concerning his ordinances and commandments. And I say that there is a whole load of happy show. They say God Himself come down and and order them, and you know these are just stories and fables and traditions they carry, not going along on the wind or through the grapevine, and people hear it and they're trying to believe them thing, just like what is happening to us today. Because a lot of people will hear about the Jesus story and hear, you know, and feel like, yeah, boy, Christianity is it, and you know, and Jesus have to come back and because even we were in the mix and we're trying to give the Christianity a black face by saying both Solomon, Black Queen of Sheba, Black Queen of Sheba from Ethiopia, Solomon in Ethiopia, and everything in Africa. And when we just saw, according to sources, that have nothing to do with Africans. You check it, family? So the more we can put aside these kind of things we're trying to latch on and live our whole life for that. You know, sometimes if you wasn't giving that all your time and dedication and your whole probably entire straight down based upon that, they're like you'd have probably been more progressive in life, being on a real level. Talking straight up, family. Because even as Jonas even bring to the understanding and brought a question, why is it that man that don't have locks can't enter Rasta and those with blocks trying to play like, oh, is did have the biggest bongo that, you know, and is a patriarchal system putting down the woman as well? Because the man tried to, what Solomon did was basically send the woman back home a whore, like a slut, because it's just a one night stand and I want you again. When the woman was actually a virgin, the one was undefiled. Not to say you go take the woman and do your thing properly, get proper permission, marry the woman, and then out of wedlock or something or whatever, you know, and not because I say wedlock, that means oh, it's a marriage or whatever, because the own Bible says that from the time a man go in onto a woman, they have become one flesh, you know. And that's just it right there. It's just the church bringing the vibe about oh, walking on the aisle and them kind of way there, and it's one man to a woman, the monogamous culture. Um, it comes to that level, family, and that even stems from slavery as well. You check it. So the child you all had out of that one night stand, that one night union, if they're like, our that line is not divine. I know the story fake, but if it's that you want to deal with, that line is not divine. And we can even see from the book itself, okay, that the woman, the queen, is actually saying that they worship the sun until she heard about them. You check it, family? So again, the mythical journey of Queen of Sheba to Solomon is the arrow, bottom arrow, the one under Saudi, the word Saudi, is Queen of Sheba's abode, and the arrow to the north is King Solomon's abode. This is in Arabia. It's an Arabian story, family. So if you want to deal with any truth of the story, you'll have to take the one where Solomon was flying on a magical carpet. You check it? So what did we learn today? Straight up. We learned that both King Solomon and Queen of Sheba are figments of the imagination, right? We learned that the story is Arabian in origin and has nothing to do with Africans. There is no divinity in the lineage since the story is fictional and King Solomon clearly ripped Makeda. And ancient cultures always venerate nature, family. Okay? And the Judeo-Christian Abrahamic belief system demonizes African or indigenous cultures. And that's the last slide. And that's the completion right there. So, straight up, family. I mean, we touch everywhere already. And as I said, this is part two to our first video entitled The Truth About King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. We're actually showing that the Queen of Sheba, the character, would have actually been built off of Queen Judith, which was the queen who actually rose up when they see King Israel and Christianity trying to come and take over the place. And they went and burned down how many churches, and mostly women, burned down how many churches. And you check it, the only church left standing was the St. Mary of Zion's church. And to show you how dread it is, women aren't even allowed to enter that church in Ethiopia today because it was women who burned down the rest of the churches. So why we here now are displaced people being in the diaspora? I know we're looking for salvation, and I know we're looking for the truth, and I know we latched onto certain things while we were growing up and building, right? To help us when we saw that the white Jesus story wasn't our own, but change is the only constant in reality, family. So we have to evolve. You can't let your ego try and make you feel a kind of way and say, "Wow, because I was Rasta and I was hiding Rasta," or 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 I was a hard Christian and had Israelite and actually believe this is true and this is what I used to preach. There is nothing wrong in actually saying, I say, you know what, I actually believe that, but that have no substantial scientific factual evidence to it. And as a result, I have to drop that and I have to evolve. They have nothing wrong in doing that. I did it and look at me. So most times when I'm doing these videos, it's not that I'm just coming at the Rastafarians, and sometimes I just use it as a little impetus. And let me just say, the impetus to do the video actually came from a lecture I was listening to of Dr. John Henry Clark, and he was saying, let's talk about Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. Did he rape the woman? Of course, he raped the woman, and he said it as a joke, and then he went on to continue in the story. But he will not say that if it didn't have some actual truth to it, which just sparked my interest, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go and build a presentation about that, straight up. You check it, and look, we have it there. Mythical characters, and according to the story, actually ripped the woman, so no divinity could have come out of that. And again, excuse me, family. Again, we're not doing that to just go straight behind the rasters. There are individuals who are in or was or probably coming to my level or the level or the stage I was in, and they need that sort of information to help them liberate themselves, family. You check, it's all about straight out of mental slavery, that mental incarceration that will help you develop yourself, family. It is the awakening. So after that presentation there, I want to hear nothing about King Solomon and Queen of Sheba and that lineage. We saw National Geographic couldn't find the remains, and not now they digging in. So King Solomon didn't exist, Queen of Sheba didn't exist. If you want to still go by the story, he raped the woman, and the story is still Arabic in nature. And having said that, family, I feel like we'll seal it up right there. Shout out to all my new subscribers. Shout out to even the two who is even there with us. If you got to that part of the video and you did like the information, please hit that subscribe button. We're asking you to send us money or anything. Just hit the subscribe button, share the video, like the video, and you can even build on in the comments. If I missed anything, let me know. It's all about building. We are all master students here. This is the awakening, family. Sayamon Ra, Caribbean God in the building. Ra. Peace, love. Don't forget that coconut oil. Sweet.